Let's look at basic domain management using PowerShell. We won't be going into managing user addresses or user principal names. We'll save that for Objective 3.3. So first, you should have loaded the Azure AD module and connected to the MSOL service as shown in the first PowerShell lesson. Then creating a new domain is fairly straightforward. You issue the new MSOL domain commandlet and let PowerShell know the name of the domain that you're adding. If you want, you could specify whether it's a managed domain or a federated domain. Managed in this case means managed through Office 365 and not federated with your on-premise environment through ADFS. The default is managed. Although the domain is added, it can't really be used yet since it hasn't been verified, and you can verify a domain via PowerShell, but we'll look at that on the next slide. To set the domain to the default, you use the set MSOL domain commandlet, specify the name of the domain, and use the flag isDefault. Again, the domain must be verified first. It can't have just been added. If you want to list all the domains and their status, you can use the get MSOL domain command, or you can specify just one domain with the domain name parameter. When you want to remove a domain, you use the remove MSOL domain commandlet with the domain name parameter. Now, it might complain that there are still objects associated with that domain and prevent you from removing it. Sometimes this is accurate, but sometimes all the references to the domain have been removed and Azure still hasn't updated all the object properties yet. You could try to use the -force parameter to attempt to remove the domain anyway, although even force doesn't always work if it's still in use. Also, this commandlet obviously won't work for the onmicrosoft.com domain since we've said that that's non-removable. So you could perform domain verification via PowerShell if you wish. First, you can use the get MSOL domain verification DNS command to display the necessary records for confirming ownership, and you can specify whether you want to use the TXT record or the MX record method. You can also use the confirm MSOL domain command to verify that the DNS ownership has been set up correctly. If successful, the command will change the status of the new domain to verified. If it can't be verified, it will complain that it can't find the CNAME record for some reason, even though adding only the TXT record is required for verification. So now let's take a look at these commands in action. So I'm not going to bother running PowerShell as administrator or setting the execution policy because we won't be doing any scripts here, but I still have to import the module MS Online. And then we'll set our user credential object like always. And this will prompt me for the username and password. Now at least I've got a much smaller, much simpler username to use here. pfslab.com. I just can't talk and type at the same time. Okay, so now we'll connect to the MSOL service. And we'll use credential parameter, specify the credential object we created, and what is it saying? That I put a space there, which I shouldn't have done. Okay, so now we're connected to our tenant, and one of the easiest ways to check that would be to say get MSOL domain, and there are two domains, our initial one and our custom one that we added. Now, if we go back here, we can see that here they are. I'll just hit refresh to show that currently those are the only two domains. Okay, now I also have this other domain, pfslab09.com, and we're going to be adding that through PowerShell right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to issue a new MSOL domain name, pfslab09.com. I could specify the authentication method as managed, but it defaults to managed, so that should be good enough. Okay, so now it added with an unverified status, and the authentication is managed. Now if I issue another get MSOL domain, I could see that all three are listed here, and one of them is unverified. Okay, so if I try to set this domain to default now, it shouldn't let me because it isn't verified. And here we go. This domain must be verified before you can set it as the default domain. Okay, so let's go ahead and verify it. Well, we can do get MSOL domain verification DNS for domain name pfslab09.com. Now, if I just leave it here, it's going to give me some information, but to be honest, this doesn't really represent the records. This is just the DNS record object information. We do have to specify the mode. So I'm going to say mode is DNS text record. And I'm going over this fast, and I think it's important that you understand it, but you may also want to try to memorize as many of these PowerShell commands as possible if you're interested in taking the exam. If you're not interested in taking the exam, well, you can always look these up through Google. Okay, so here is the text that we're concerned with, ms-1064009. I'm just going to copy this here. I think we can copy out of a PowerShell window. If I say edit, copy, we'll come over here, and we'll create a text record. Yep, that worked. So we'll go ahead and add that. Now, the confirmation takes a little longer via PowerShell for some reason. At least that's been my experience. So if we went here to confirm MSOL domain, domain name, pfslab09.com. Oh, it worked. That was quick. Okay, so yeah, it worked. Oh, by the way, yeah, as you can see here, I'm in the pfslab09.com domain, and there was no records whatsoever set up at this time. Okay, so it's immediately available. The domain has been successful. So now if we do a get MSOL domain, we should see all three are managed. And if I come back here and do a refresh, I was going to show you how this one was, how this one looked before it was confirmed, but it confirmed too quickly. Well, now we've got PFSLab09, and it says setup is in progress because it's still going to want us to add in all those additional records, like the SPF and the CNAMEs and the auto-discovers, and then do a check on those records as well, and then it'll say that setup is complete. But there we go. So now we've successfully added this as a domain. And if we go into any one of our users, for example here, we should be able to add this as a domain name. Okay. So actually, just having done that, I probably just ruined what I was going to show you next was the removal. But you know what? This might be just as good because I bet you if I try to do remove MSOL domain now and say domain name pfslab09.com, it's going to say, oh, well, it worked. Okay. So it probably didn't have time to update this, unfortunately. But either way, that's how it works. You can add domains, you can remove domains. Sometimes it lets you do it, sometimes it doesn't, and you have to go remove references to it, and then sometimes you have to wait, sometimes you have to use force. So you just kind of got to play around with it. It depends on how responsive the Microsoft servers are being on the back end there. Okay, so that is our demonstration. Okay, end of the objective. Next up is exam review.